As this is an unplanned and very fortuitous video, I was intending to be speaking to you next about From Hell. But as it happened, last night on television I caught a film that I've been wanting to watch for ages called Dead of Night from 1945. And it's been particularly on my mind recently because the last review I did for you guys was for a film called Magic, starring Anthony Hopkins, Burgess Meredith, about a guy and his ventriloquist dummy, that got a great reception, average views, but a lot of people commenting, and a lot of people commenting on Twitter as well, and pointing me towards Dead of Night, which is a film I hadn't seen, which has a segment in it about a ventriloquist and his dummy. And I'd never seen it before. I was up in the higher numbered Freeview channels last night and caught Dead of Night. Missed about the first 10-15 minutes or so, but really wanted to talk to you about it now, today, while it's fresh in my mind, because man, I'm so glad I got to see this, and I'm gonna try and buy it and catch the first 15 minutes that I didn't get. But this is some real connective tissue here in the history of horror films. This is a missing jigsaw piece for me. It's an anthology movie, a portmanteaux movie. I love those anyway. I love the Amicus movies that were around about the same time as Hammer Studios were doing their stuff. Amicus were doing their sort of slightly more seedy, grimy, working class horror movies to Hammer's high camp and gothic and very stylized. I've always been a fan of portmanteau movies, the movie where you get 4 or 5 little short stories in one film with an overarching or interconnecting story linking them all together. And Dead of Night from 1945 links in with the Amicus movies, it links in with Magic that we talked about previously. Some of you guys go just as gaga over as I do, and I've managed to backfill a little piece of the picture with Dead of Night that I just want to, it's essentially in as short a time as possible, without spoilers. I just want to recommend it to you. If you can get your hands on it, if you can see it, check it out. Normal service will resume at the weekend, where I will be doing a giveaway, 150 subscriber giveaway to run. I've been waiting till the end of February because I want that to run all of March, and then after that I'm going to do a funny little video about From Hell. It won't be a review of From Hell, but it'll be what I intended. Stick around, check that out, and once I put that one out, you can tell me what we all know, which is that I'm soft in the head. I think it's fair to say that Ealing Studios are better known for their comedy. Certainly when you say Ealing to me, the first thing I think of is Sir Alec Guinness and the Ealing comedies, not least The Lady Killers, Kind Hearts and Coronets, things like that. Didn't really know they dabbled in horror, certainly didn't know that they dabbled in a portmanteau horror film that is, it's quirky, it's its own thing, and I swear to you, especially my American viewers, if I say go out and get this and watch this, probably for the first 30 minutes you're going to be going, now why the hell did Grumpy Andrew recommend this? It's very, very terribly clipped and chipped English, all very prim and proper and precise, and people in a country house talking about things, and my goodness gracious me, and you'll be going, what the is he cracked? Because it's certainly of a time. You're going to have to get used to the acting style, you're going to have to get used to the delivery, you're going to have to get used to the quasi Agatha Christie setting of a country house with lots of people in a drawing room talking, because all of this, I promise you, and I'm not going to give anything away, but all of this is designed to just draw you in, make you comfortable with the setting. People watching in the day when it was brand new and fresh would be used to settings like this, and the way people were acting and the way people were talking. Even today, now that it's dated, Bizarrely, that still works because it makes you underestimate the movie. It makes you think, oh goodness, some of this is really hammy. The delivery is really clipped. Some of the performances are really, time hasn't been kind to them, and you let your guard down. And I'm telling you, when you let your guard down with this film, and you will, that is when it will get you. Usually, one of the weaknesses of these portmanteau films is that the interconnecting story is the weakest element of the bunch. And if you've seen any of the Amicus films, you will know what I'm talking about. There'll be 5 people stuck in a lift, telling themselves about the dreams they had last night. You'll get 5 or 6 people on a train carriage having a tarot reading, and it's all just a kind of set up to get to the short stories, where Dead of Night got it so right, first of all, and I just don't know why people weren't taking their cues from this, is that the connecting story is the most important story in the film. It drives the film. The short story segments, the short tales that happen throughout the movie are as a result of the main scenario, and the main scenario drives you onto the next story and the next story, and there is a mystery to the main scenario that keeps you watching. In short, an architect's invited to a country house. It's a job. He's to provide a quote. When he gets there, there's a group of people already there who have never met him before, but he is convinced that he's met them in a dream. He starts getting this uncanny feeling, this feeling of unreality, that he's dreamed this scenario before and he knows what's going to happen. He doesn't remember the dream, only bits of it. All he knows is that what's going to happen is going to be horrific. One of the people there is a German psychologist who attempts to disprove his mania, his obsession, because it's completely unscientific, and to do so solicits other people in the place to tell their stories of the paranormal, the unexplained and the supernatural, and he will explain them away using science and psychology. And each time we return to the house, this architect makes predictions about the future, things that are going to happen based on snippets of his dream that he remembers. So each time you go back, you want to see whether his predictions are fulfilled, or whether they can take actions, as they try and do, take actions to stop his prediction from becoming fulfilled. And I can't stress enough how much that strong narrative engine chugging away constantly beneath the short stories elevates this film above many of the films that came later of the same ilk. As with all of these portmanteau type films, some of the short stories you'll take to, some you won't take to. They vary in quality, and we're going to touch briefly, spoiler free, but we're going to briefly touch on those, and then we'll close it off. And if you're interested in it by that point, then you guys have got a great movie to watch. As I said at the start, the first short story, the start of the movie, I didn't see. So the first short story, we'll call it The Hearse Driver, I didn't catch. I can't comment on it. I've read up about it today. Apparently it's a very short segment, a sort of premonition of death type thing. The second scenario is called The Christmas Story, and it's set in a supposedly haunted house at a children's Christmas party. Now this section's a classic ghost story, and it's going to sucker you in. You're going to. It's set up. It's traditional. It's clean, and by the end of it, you're going to think, "Is that it?" And if you're anything like me, it's going to stick with you. But this film doesn't come out flailing from the first bell. This film knows that there are 15 rounds to go. It knows it's a marathon, not a sprint. The third story is a haunted mirror, a cursed mirror type story. And bizarrely, you'll see this section, which a lot of people say is the scariest section in the movie. Your tastes may vary. For me, it's not. Bizarrely, you'll see in Amicus's From Beyond the Grave, personally my favourite till now portmanteau film, you'll see this story played out twice in that film, with David Warner's segment with A Cursed Mirror, and later on in that film, Ian Ogilvy plays around with a haunted door, of all things. Two different strands of this particular segment teased out over a couple of stories in From Beyond the Grave, which no doubt on this channel I will get at some point to talking about From Beyond the Grave, because it's absolutely superb. Then you have something really quite interesting, tonally very bizarre. It's for want of a better word, we'll call it the golfer's story. It's more of a PG Woodhouse. It's definitely played for laughs. It's definitely light-hearted. Contextually, though, there is actually a reason for it. The guy that tells that story is a complete non-believer. Everything's getting a bit grim and a bit too earnest in the room. So he just makes up a ghost story to lighten the mood. And as he says, he doesn't want to feel left out. And you're sitting there thinking, well, okay, well, that was bizarre and sort of kind of funny. The Christmas story and this story often get cut out. You'll be thinking, well, that went on for far too long, and what was the point of that? I swear to God, the point is because just as your defences are lowered, this film then comes out swinging and just doesn't stop swinging. The fifth story, the ventriloquist's dummy. Certainly, let me just have a look at my notes here. There's no doubt, and this is how we get into the connective tissue with magic. It takes its DNA from a 1929 film that I haven't seen. I'm sort of working backwards through time, called The Great Gabbo. If Gabbo rings a bell with you, then that's the name of the puppet on the episode of The Simpsons where the ventriloquist takes over from Krusty and all the kids are going mad about him and Gabbo, named specifically for the Great Gabbo. Every other tale of a ventriloquist losing his personality to his dummy through whatever means, psychological or supernatural, all stem from this. And so from the Great Gabbo you get to The Dead of Night. From The Dead of Night, 2 Twilight Zone episodes, The Dummy in 1962 and Caesar and Me in 1964, both all coming from this same spring well. Then finally Magic, which I reviewed previously. This segment, okay. If ventriloquist dummies already creep you out like clowns do to some people, then this one is going to push all the right buttons for you. As with all the other things I've mentioned, both of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and Magic and Dead Silence, which I reviewed probably a year or more ago, you kind of always know what's going to happen, but the execution is always key. And I'll be honest with you, this one, it just fucking knocks it out of the park. It absolutely knocks it out of the park. As with all types of stories like this, and including as well the cousin to something like this, which is Child's Play, where you've always got one eye on the doll to see whether it's going to move on its own or not. Who is it that Michael Redgrave? That's it, Michael Redgrave. I wanted to shout out his name because he plays the ventriloquist, and my God, he sells this. He absolutely sells this, right to the terrifying conclusion of that story, the sort of shocking image. By then you've been punched in the gut, okay, and it's the final story, and we're back. We're back in the room, and you've had your gut punch. The film just comes in for the knockout blow. After this, it just becomes a freewheeling descent. All notions of reality, time, and space break down. I don't want to tell you any more than that, except that there's a shot in it that is lifted. Don Mancini, I mean, if you're going to steal from the greats, took it and put it straight into Child's Play, and it's probably the most affecting shot in Child's Play. And by the end of it, I think I'm a fairly jaded viewer of horror movies. Now, I won't say it scared me, but imagery is what really gets under my skin. Sensations and imagery, and by the end of this film, I was making noises. Uh, there's one shot, there's one segment towards the end that just made me go, ugh. I just wasn't expecting to see something like that. I don't want to oversell it. And maybe I already have by telling you it builds up to a fantastic denouement. So maybe I've done you a disservice by making you almost like telling someone there's a twist at the end of the film. So they're sat there trying to work out the twist. I don't want you to sit there challenging the film, waiting for it to go. Okay, come on, get me. Stick it on, enjoy it, and it will take you there. I promise you that. It might not be pants-shittingly scary for you, but this is a work of such class. No jump scares, none of the trickery and tomfoolery and basic general bullshit that as horror fans we get spoon-fed most of the time these days. This harkens back to the works of Algernon Blackwood and Victorian ghost stories and the like, and mixes it with a very modern sensibility of psychology and the demons of the mind, being very prescient, many years ahead of Psycho in that way. It's got a wonderful balance of the supernatural horrors and the psychological horrors, and you won't have wasted your time watching Dead of Night. I'm so happy it was on television last night. I'm so happy to be able to talk about it pretty much off the heels of talking about Magic, a film that owes it a debt. And I am now going to seek it out and purchase it because I need to see the start of it and I want to watch it again. And if you haven't seen it, I really hope you enjoy it. If you have seen it, please comment below and tell me how fucking awesome it is. Stay tuned for the giveaway at the weekend. And then after that, I'm going to take some time aside to tell you why I think From Hell is the movie is actually the sequel to From Hell the comic rather than the movie adaptation of the comic. But that particular brand of madness is for another time.